Hey everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Dubai Code. So today I have someone really special, a like-minded person that shares the same values that I do. His name is Michel. Okay, you might know him of also the Ferrari man. We'll talk about it later. So Michel, welcome to a new episode.
Hey Roy, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Perfect.
Thanks
So
for having me here.
and anytime, my pleasure. So today we're gonna deep dive a little bit about you first, then about the secondary market. Then also we have something to discuss at the end. So first of all, a lot of people know you, even though you're not very active on Instagram and social media, and you should, by the way.
Yeah.
But just tell us first, like, how did you start in Dubai, and how did you start in real estate?
All right. So first, Roy, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Michelle, like you just mentioned, and I was working in management consulting before. I was working with the top management consulting firms like Management Solution Experts and Kearney, and I've worked there for over 4 years. And during my experience, I've prepared proper skills set that would help me in the real estate consulting world
Mm-hmm.
as a combo between both, I would say.
Yeah.
So I'm not just any type of normal broker that entered the market and started selling houses and homes and so on. I had the skill set, the previous knowledge of how to analyze markets, whether it was real estate or other industries as well. So I used to work with top authorities in the governments, and I used to analyze their organization structure in order to deep dive into what their problem is and what their needs are and meet their needs into a specific niche.
Okay, so you had a strong foundation before you entered the real estate.
Exactly. So
Okay.
when I entered the real estate market, although I didn't have previous knowledge of the real estate market, however, I was really very passionate about real estate. So I merged my skill set of consulting to real estate in order to start growing into the specific niche that I like, and it's my passion now, which is
Okay,
which is real
amazing.
estate.
And also, why did you decide on secondary, not offline, for example?
So I believe, Roy, that real estate in general, in any country in the world, not only in Dubai, is purely secondary market. Because if you're not strong in the secondary market, you won't be able to promise and deliver on that promise to your investors yourselves. Because today, any person can sell a primary market through a developer stock, but not all people can sell resale and generate that premium, because the investor will only believe in what you are telling him is when you give him that premium that you promised him when you sold in the primary market.
Correct.
So today you sell an investor, for example, with a big developer in Dubai, a specific unit of one bed that costed 1 million, for example. And you promise him that after 3 or 4 years, he will generate 30%, 40% premium on capital appreciation. Now, when will he actually monetize on that value is when handover came and you tried to resell it and you actually sold it for that premium. Then there you would be that specialized real estate secondary real estate agent that would be able to generate that premium for him that you promised him 3-4 years ago.
Correct.
So I thought to myself that if I wasn't that niche, I wasn't into that niche, I wouldn't have been able to promise my investors what I can deliver and actually get the results that I promised.
Got you. And something very important you said in the beginning that, in a way, you said that this is the real estate, and that's true because everywhere in the world, wherever you go, that's the real estate that we know of, and that's the real estate that we were, raised and born and raised and get to see. But in Dubai, there's something special about offland. First of all, when I say offland, you cannot find it anywhere else in the world. In very specific areas, maybe, but it's not like the same offline that we have in Dubai. Second thing is the appreciation that gets you in good projects. I'm not saying everywhere. You can never see it anywhere
You're
in the
right.
world. That's
You're
that's
right.
the good thing about
And
it.
that's
And
what's special about Dubai, I would say, because in Dubai, Dubai's demand in terms of a target audience is more into off plan nowadays than actually ready
Mhm.
market. So off plan is actually booming now in Dubai, and there's oversupply, I would say, from developers. Not oversupply in a bad way, but I mean very fierce competition
Yeah,
where developers are competing to give you the best product, the best quality, and also play on the price. So, and you see that launches nowadays are taking 1 or 2 days, sometimes 1 or 2 hours to be sold. So that demand from off plan should meet the secondary supply as well when you want to resell your product.
correct. I mean, the competition is very understandable because you have too many new developers as well. So everyone is trying to put their name on the map. So that's why they're trying to give you a better payment plan, more amenities, a better location. They promise you more things just to make up for something that they don't have, which is like the reputation or something else. So guys, as you can see, and as you can tell, that Michel is very humble, okay, but he's actually a big shot. That's why I called him in the beginning the Ferrari man. So I'm gonna let him tell us about the story about Ferrari and also the other story that you know about, please.
Thank you, Roy. I really appreciate the kind words. So honestly, Roy, I went into the market 2 years ago thinking that I want to give it my all because I'm in this market for the long run. I'm not an agent that want to make money on a short term and leave like a hit and run. I want to be here for the long run. I want to build relationships with clients. I want to put myself in the client's shoes when I give them an advice because I want to take it on my own. I want to make them money so that they can make me money in terms of referrals and connections later on in the long run. So what I did, Roy, from the beginning is that I purely focused on people, how they can benefit before my own benefit. So what I did is I focused on specific audiences to make them that premium that I promised them in the resale market and to work on their units end to end so that I can generate that promised return.
Yeah.
So what happened is after my continuous achievements and results, one of the two biggest property portals in Dubai, which you know, Property Finder and Bayoud,
Yeah.
have selected me as one of the top 8 or 10 agents in Dubai to be featured in their top campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
Bayoud to be featured on their largest billboard on Hussa Street, and Property Finder to be featured in their Ferrari campaign, or I'd call it a supercar campaign.
Yeah, but it's something very big because you have to know that Michel's name and picture was among people who were like 10 years building their own, reputation in Dubai. So that's something very big, and I should give you credit for it.
Thank you.
So, yeah, and also, by the way, I wanted to ask you, before I ask you about the market in general, who are your main clients in terms of, are they more like investors, more like someone who wants to find their forever home? Like, how does it go?
So technically speaking, clients are segmented into two main buckets, I would say, end users or investors.
Mhm.
And then you can go from end users into specific buckets and you can go into investors to specific buckets. I'm not going to go into very minor details, but I can tell you that an end user and how you approach an end user is way different than how you approach an investor himself.
Of course.
An end user, what you usually do is that an end user, you have to play on the emotions and on the needs because that's what you're trying to sell him. You're trying to sell him his lifetime earnings into a specific home that he wants to invest in. Probably could not be the best return on his investment, but at the same time, it has to be more leaning towards what he needs.
His lifestyle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
His lifestyle, his family. If he has kids, he wants something spacious. He wants a villa with a nice garden. So that's something that you have to cater to his needs purely and not only the market. Of course, you have to play a devil's advocate and be able to tell him that this specific location should give him a return on his investment and the capital appreciation in the long run.
Based on facts.
Definitely, because you can't also only purely focus on his needs and his requirements, and then he invests in a bad location or with a bad developer, and then he only focuses on what he needs in terms of space and quality and so on, and then 2-3 years down the run, he should sell it at a loss. You get my point? So you have to cater to each end user in a specific, customized, I would say, or tailored way.
That's very interesting also because, I'm specialized in offline and not secondary. And sometimes when I send, let's say when I talk to someone on a meeting or I send them a brochure or we talk about a specific project, sometimes, and it happened to me yesterday, by the way, sometimes people tell me, I didn't feel it or I don't think it's gonna do well. And I'm like, okay, based on what? I don't know, it's just a feeling.
A vibe. Some people call it a vibe.
Forget about feelings, okay? We're talking purely now about investing in offline. There's no feelings involved. There's nothing involved. Only you have to think about the numbers, the cost, what you're paying, and what you are getting, and your enter and exit strategy. That's it. So that's very different when it comes to secondary. And secondary, especially an end user, when they walk into a house or a villa or an apartment, either they like it or they don't. Okay, you cannot play around. Okay, for example, let's say a couple entered and they saw a kitchen which they hate. You cannot do anything about it. You can tell them we can renovate it, we can change it, but if they tell you that we need something very specific, then that's it. I mean,
exactly.
Get them something else. So
that's where the challenge comes, because you, as a primary off-plan specialist, have to cater to these needs using brochures and renders, which makes it harder for you to sell them the vibe or the spirits that
have to imagine.
They would need to visualize on what the floor would look like, the dimensions on the floor plan. So they need to see if the specific taste that they want to put into interior design, furniture, and so on would match their needs in off plan. So that's why it makes your job harder, which I really appreciate your hard work. Honestly, you're excelling in the primary off plan market into catering to these end users. And you probably would focus more on investors rather than end users, because end users would give you a bit of a harder time to cater to this.
Something that really helps me as an offline specialist is that Dubai is very transparent. The government, Dubai Land Department, the vision is there. You have the 2040 plan. You have everything that are that we are start to see them implementing it. Okay, and this is why no one can invent numbers and create an illusion. Okay, this is what's going on. No one can predict the future. I cannot guarantee you that you will get 30, 40, 100, 200%. I cannot do that, but I know based on facts and based on previous historical exactly transactions, this is what's gonna happen in the area.
Exactly.
Like some of my struggles with offline, okay, that some people don't believe in Dubai, some people never visited, so they don't understand what you're saying. Some people don't understand also the appreciation that Dubai is offering, and so on with some problems. I want to ask you, what are some problems that you face in the secondary market, knowing that a person is here and is available for viewings and everything?
So technically, Roy, I would say I would categorize this question into two main buckets. First bucket would be identifying the buyer into what his actual funds are. Is it in cash? When I say cash, I mean funds in bank account. I'm not going to be talking about hard cash at the moment. Ready cash in the bank that he can issue manager's checks in. And the second, or versus a mortgage buyer, which he has to apply through a property mortgage loan through a bank in order to get his pre-approval, then evaluation, and final offer letter accordingly. So this is the types of purchase that you can do in Dubai versus one is cash versus the other is in mortgage. Now, we also have to take into account, which a lot of people don't really think about, is that the type of seller as well, because the seller plays a big role in the purchase or in the resale. The seller can be a cash seller or he can be a mortgage seller. And I don't know if you can relate to that, but I
can, and I'm so glad you brought it up, because I wanted to ask you, my next question was, tell me about one of the most complicated deals that you have, and I'm sure mine is of course one of them. So I would love to, if we can, talk about it,
Exactly.
in more details.
So to summarize the deal, Roy, technically I had a cash buyer, you had a mortgage seller. People would think it's a smooth deal because it's a cash buyer, it will close directly. But they don't look into the specifics of the seller in himself. The seller has to go through a very, very complicated and long process with his bank to clear his settlement. Whether the buyer is cash or mortgage, we also have on the other side, the seller has to identify the specific liability he has to his bank, and this specific liability has an expiry period. So today, when he applies for his liability with the bank, usually depending on the banks, they would give you 1 week, 10 days, maximum 15 days in order to clear that liability after they issue the liability letter. So our buyer, on the same time, although he was cash, but he was also selling his villa in a different location in order to secure that cash or that fund in order to clear your seller's liability.
Correct.
So it was a back-to-back deal because your seller was also living in the villa itself. So we needed it vacant on transfer, and we needed the funds from the buyer that was selling his villa. And we needed to find your seller a unit to live in.
Correct.
So 3 deals at the same time was making things complicated, I would say. So what I think is that every single agent in Dubai's real estate market has to treat every deal with the utmost attention. Regardless if it's cash or mortgage, buyer or seller, they have to identify the process and the steps needed in order to make it smooth for both parties. Or otherwise, if we didn't put its proper strategy into play, the deal could have taken 6 months or maybe 1 year, because it's really very, very, very crucial into identifying the milestones and the time frame that we have in order to finalize the deal. You got my point?
There's something very important that you said also, that like I remember, okay, if you remember, you saw I posted the snippets of this deal on my stories and Instagram account. So the thing is that you are only seeing the end result.
Exactly.
You are only seeing the happy ending and everything, but you don't understand the struggle that we went through, how many sleepless nights, the stress that we've been through, me and him, and also the buyer and the seller, in order to finalize it. But at the end of the day, if Michel, let's say, he wasn't an expert and he didn't face similar issues before, and he didn't have actual like a team of people working on the back end also, we couldn't have done it, to be honest. It was a struggle um, to finish everything within time. Also, to add to it, we were doing it during Ramadan, which is also a bit harder because,
Most
as well,
authorities, most departments
exactly,
close and take
exactly.
period off.
So we had a lot more
Especially banks, because
banks also.
banks during normal working days work half a day. So
Correct.
what about Ramadan?
Correct.
They won't work.
Correct.
So
Add to it a very complicated developer when it comes to NOCs. Add to it also some other approvals. Add to it some problems from the seller also. So we had a lot of problems. So I'm glad. I mean, we worked together on this to make it happen, and I'm sure it won't be the last. So let me ask you something very important. How do you see the market in the real estate, of course, in the secondary? Well, like what's going on and what's gonna happen in 2027, 2028? We're not gonna hold you accountable, of course. This is just, us talking. And what is your opinion?
definitely. Look, how I see the market shifting now, the demand is more on towards the primary, towards the off plan, I would say. And I need to also identify something that is a misconception, I would say, in today's market, because today a buyer calls me and tells me, I want an off plan.
Mm-hmm.
You need to identify that this off plan is coming from the secondary market. Is it an off plan resale, or is it coming from the primary market, from the developer itself? Similarly to the ready market, because the ready could be directly from the developer. You have some developers that still have stock even after handover,
Correct.
which this could be a red flag for investors, and they have to take into account that why did this developer still have stock after handover and couldn't sell it.
And some other developers are selling within 20 minutes.
Exactly. So this is like a criteria or eligibility criteria that an investor has to do, a checklist, I would say, before taking a decision. So but going back to your question, which how I see the market growing. Now the demand is more on the off plan. It will go towards the secondary in the resale, because there are more than 200,000 units handing over within the coming years. And this specific number also has to be used properly, because when I say 200,000 plus units handing over, you have to identify the time frame of when they're handing over. Probably 5-10% are handing over this year. The other 20-30% are handing over next year. Don't be misguided by the fact that there's a lot of supply coming to the market and the market will crash or will correct itself. This supply is over multiple years. It's over a big time frame. So we need to, as real estate consultants, advise our clients that this supply is being done in this year, in that area, in that project. So in order to take an informed decision on when to exit, because this real estate industry is all about exit strategies. And you said it first in the beginning of our podcast. So it's purely about when the investor exits and not when he enters. I believe when you enter is always the right time. There's no right time for an entry point, because Dubai's real estate market on the long run will always be appreciating, just like any other asset in the world. So I believe that it's always a good time to enter, but you also have to consider when to exit, because even if you entered at a peak, later on, if the market corrects itself and goes down, it will re-increase and you will make profit. So don't enter with all your funds and with all your lifetime savings and take a risk. Of course not. But at the same time, have an exit strategy. And that's what's important. You have to have an exit strategy in the secondary market in order to resell later on and make profits, and not lose like many of the investors, unfortunately, in today's market are.
And talking about exit strategies also, we want to add something. Don't get confused about, like, for example, let's say you want to buy with a certain developer, and let's say the developer is good with reputation, quality, and everything. But in that case, specifically with this developer and this area and that project, you might not be able to get the appreciation that you want, but you might get a high return. In some other cases, it's nearly impossible to resell because you have 5,000 units in the same community. So it all depends. So we cannot just buy any project and expect to get any number. So that's why you have us, okay, to calculate the numbers. to minimize your risk to the max. And you have to remember that anything that we wouldn't buy ourselves, we will not sell, because, like you said, it's a very long relationship and it's a win-win solution.
Exactly.
That's it.
What I would say, and many people that are listening to this podcast would know, specifically my clients, I always am known to ask the client, what's your objective?
Yeah.
What is your objective behind this purchase? Is it to resell in the future, to flip? Now, the flipping market, by the way, is becoming a bit more slower in Dubai because
Correct.
people can't buy today and flip in 2 or 3 months and make premium, or not even in 6 months. They have to wait a proper time frame in order to flip before handover or on handover, or so on and so forth. So what I would say to every single buyer that calls me up, whether it's coming from a referral or it's coming from the property portal or any specific channel that I get my lead from or my clients from, I call them and ask them, what's your specific objective?
Mm-hmm.
Because objectives lead to specific supply or specific units that you can offer them.
Yep.
You can't offer any launch or any project or any product to any buyer that just has a budget, for example, over 1 million or over 2 million. You need to cater to this specific needs and objectives, because the buyer that wants to resell, you offer him a specific niche of products, and the buyer that wants high rental yield, you offer him a different niche or product.
Correct.
I can give you a lifetime example of today's market. People investing in downtown, Business Bay, JBR, Marina, these prime and hot locations, or even City Walk, are purely for long-term safety asset and long-term appreciation, because these markets and these specific areas have already appreciated. So the rental yield did not pick up to the selling price.
Mm-hmm.
Now in these prime areas, getting 5 or 6% is something very big in these specific prime areas.
Yeah.
That's why people that have an objective of getting a high rental yield usually focus on type B locations, I'll call them. Type B is parallel to Sheikh Zayed Road, like JVC, Maidan, Arjan, even Production City. So these investors have to look at rental yields there that they can generate 8, 9, and even 10%,
Correct.
which I'm currently generating to my clients, when they have an objective of return on their investment, passive income, we
Yeah.
call it. But when their objective is purely flipping, or not flipping, but capital appreciation on the long run, they more lean towards the type A areas like Business Bay, downtown, and,
Yeah.
and JBR,
I mean,
Marina, and so on.
if we learn something about Dubai, is that always trust the government, trust what they are doing, because they have a plan. Okay, we're not just building, okay, just to have fun. There is a plan. You will always make money in Dubai, but like you said, it depends on when to enter, when to exit, and what is your strategy. Is it a long run or a short one? And that's it. You will always make money as long as you are with the right people and the right developer or the right project. So anyway, guys, thank you so much. You're gonna add something.
Yeah. So I wanted to add one last closing statement, Roy. I always give the same advice to my investors, specifically investors more than end users. If you want to invest in a project that adds a lot of value, invest where the government is putting their money, because that's the only asset that you have, a safe asset, where you know that the UAE government, and I really give a big credit to the UAE's government because of their hard work and their intention of really benefiting their people, and not like other governments, unfortunately, that think of how they can benefit their own pockets. But UAE's government purely focuses on end users, or on the residents living in Dubai, or even tourists, attracting investors from abroad. They purely focus that they want to invest a lot of millions and even billions of dirhams into infrastructure, into adding value to this community. So this is where investors have to identify, through our expertise and through our advice, these specific communities where the government as a whole is investing and putting their money in, because these are the master communities that will appreciate on the long run.
Correct. I mean, the thing is that some people, because they don't live in Dubai and they never came to Dubai, so they don't understand how proactive the government is.
Exactly.
So that's why I always tell people when I talk to them, if you can come by, please come, just at least for 1 week, okay? Just come here, take a short-term rental, okay? Just enjoy it, and you will understand what I'm saying. Because as long as we're talking, okay, you can believe me and you can't, that's fine. But I mean, once you land here and once you see what's going on, then yeah, it's different.
Exactly.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Michel, always a pleasure.
Thank you so much,
We're gonna
Fred.
see you again very
Definitely,
soon, I'm sure.
definitely.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.